Hi, everybody. Steve Caton from Alteza. And you might remember a couple weeks ago, I posted what a lot of people are now referring to as the squirrel story, and using squirrels to illustrate the difference between rainmaking and sales. And so I thought I'd post a follow up to that because in many cases, there is a lack of coordination between those two activities. And when that happens, it doesn't work well. So for any of you who've studied squirrels, not that I have extensively, but I know that in many cases, squirrels are actually working together in that activity of gathering food for the winter, right? So some are up there in the trees knocking the nuts down, and others are on the ground storing those, taking those nuts and storing them for the winter. The same kind of coordination needs to happen between rainmakers and salespeople. It's not an accident, right? So squirrels have all that hardwired into their DNA. We as humans aren't squirrels, so we don't necessarily have that hardwired into our DNA. And many times, rainmakers who hire salespeople just expect them to figure it out. That's a dangerous assumption to make because not all salespeople are going to be able to do that. In fact, most will not. So here are 4 things you need to keep in mind in terms of creating good coordination between rainmaking and sales. First of all, you've got to have clear communication internally and externally. So everybody inside the company needs to understand the roles that we all play in that process. And then we need to communicate that externally to the prospects that are being surfaced through these activities. Because if the prospect doesn't know that I'm going to transition a relationship or a conversation from myself to somebody on my team, then it's going to feel really strange and abrupt to them when that happens. So we need to be really clear with communication, first internally and then externally. The second thing we need to do is create clear boundaries around who does what. So there are some situations where I'm going to create a new lead through rainmaking and I'm going to hang on to that lead for a variety of reasons. And then there's some situations where I'm going to immediately pass that to somebody on our team. And it could be 1 or 2 people that I pass it to. Well, we need to understand, again, internally, what those boundaries are and why I would hang on to a relationship versus passing it. And then if I pass it, who I pass it to and why. Again, clear communication and boundaries, right? Number 3, this is the third thing, is we need to have a well-documented process for them moving these leads from rainmaking status into the sales funnel and into the sales process where we're closing them. Got to document it. You got to know what the steps are. You got to know how people move from one step to the next. That has to be very clear and well documented. And then number 4, you got to have a system to support it. Got to have a system to support it. If you think that you can do all of this without putting notes in a CRM, you are greatly mistaken. I'm telling you, it's going to be chaos if you try to do that. So you've got to have well-documented notes at every step of the journey. Because if you don't, then there's going to be gaps in communication and awareness for people on the team. And what's going to happen is they're going to do something or say something to the prospect that seems completely out of left field. And it's not going to create confidence in you or your team. So those are the 4 things that you got to have in place in order to create great synergy between rainmaking and sales. I'll say one more thing. So I'm going to add a 5th thing to the list, and that is accountability. You got to have accountability to the results. You got to have accountability to the activity, and you got to have accountability to the system. Like, is it working, right? So be sure you're meeting rainmakers and salespeople. Make sure you guys are meeting and talking and reviewing all this no less than once a month. Okay, it's got to happen once a month. If you can do it more, great, but don't do it any less than once a month. If you do, you're going to find yourself out in the weeds really fast. All right, so I hope that's a helpful follow-up to the whole rainmaking versus sales conversation. And again, if you need help doing this, that's why we're here at Alteza. We love doing this stuff and we'd love to help you. So thanks for listening.